Hey there. Are you tired of waiting for the next episode of It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, we've got some good news for you. On Nebula, our streaming service, you can get access to all our episodes a week early. That's right, you'll never have to wait again to hear Scott and I debunk the latest ancient astronaut theory or get a movie fact wrong. But that's not all. Nebula is home to dozens of content creators we know you like, so you can find all your favorites in one place. Plus, we post content on there that you won't find anywhere else. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and listen to the next episode right after this one. This episode is dedicated to the memory of Tom Lehrer, who passed away about 3 weeks ago, as of the recording of this episode. You may remember him. Honestly, when I found out that he had passed away, I was like, oh, wow, he was still alive, because he was like in his 90s or something like that when he died. But he was featured briefly on this show. He was the person who sang the Werner von Braun song.
That's right.
Yeah. Big satirist, important of his time, and it was a real tragedy to see him go. And he had a small role on this show. Not literally,
That's
he had no
awesome.
idea that he was on this show, but
he had no idea.
But he was a real one.
But arguably the biggest part of his legacy was being on this show. So
yeah,
we salute you.
The second is that one of the common pieces of It's Probably Not Aliens lore is that I have regularly said that I have never been to church. Unless somebody was getting married or buried, I have never been to I've never been to church for the wear nice clothes, hear a guy talk, sing some songs, go home part. I think there's coffee sometime after that.
Yeah, you've done the go home part, but it's more so just you're passing it, maybe. You're passing the building on the way to home.
Yeah, maybe.
Potentially.
But I've never done that whole part until last Friday. And now I've been to a religious institution for a regular ceremony. And
tell me all about it.
Well, you could probably guess that because it was Friday, it was not a Christian church.
Wasn't okay. Hey, you know what? There are a lot of new ones out there that are trying to get the youths. And so sometimes they do that. When I was in college, I went to a church on a Saturday afternoon because they were like, these college kids are not going to want to wake up on Sunday and go to church. We're going to play around with the format a little bit.
I went in a work capacity. I will say that.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right.
But we did not know what it was going to be. So I was going to participate in some work stuff there. But we had been invited to this event and I went, and I realized very quickly that the place that I had been was a mosque, and that the place that I was set up was just during their regular Friday service. And so, because what happened is that the place, I don't know if this would ever happen in a church, but the mosque was too full.
Whoa.
So they had to have overflow worship.
Okay.
In the parking lot outside of the building, and then the imam was talking through through a intercom.
I get that.
And so I was in the outdoor area. Now there's a lot of I think that this happens at the Christian church. I've never been, so I don't know, but I imagine there's also a lot of confusion if it was your first time there, because there's a lot of things that everyone just kind of knows to do and you just don't.
Can I say, and I can only speak from my own experience, that happens even if you're going from one church of the same faith to another. Everyone does something different that you're just like, oh, that's not how I do it. Or I don't know what they're doing. They're passing around a what now? That's not how we do it here. And they're standing for this reason and they're reciting this. We don't do that. So there's a lot of everyone does something kind of different. But I imagine it's even much so for you who's not really been to anything.
Yeah, so I I didn't participate because I'm not a Muslim, so I obviously it would not be a thing. Not be behooven for me to do. But I was
Sure.
there. I like listened to the sermon. And I talked to people afterwards and all that stuff. So I think that is the closest though that I've ever been to just being to like a regular church service of one kind or
That's
another.
awesome. Did you feel it? Did you feel the power of God?
I felt the sermon actually was about community, and
All right.
about solidarity and about how
Ah.
like why it was a lot of it was about Gaza, about how like why them being hurts us on the other side of the world and all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
I thought
Hmm.
it was pretty nice. Not enough that I'm like gonna start believing stuff because I don't know how people can just do that, but
Hmm.
that's just because I'm built different, and by different I mean
Wow.
weird.
Wow.
I'm built weird.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
feel
okay.
I think by being a person who never grew up in any religious context, I don't I'm an anomaly for like the vast majority of the world.
That's fair. It is hard to explain the certain things. I keep wanting to say we. Like I'm not religious anymore, but
But
it was a big part of my growing up that it's hard to even let go of it. But it's like yeah, it's definitely difficult to explain the sort of even the little things, you know. Yeah, like I'm sure I'm sure there were tiny things that happened that you were just like, why do you do that? Why do you say that? Why I don't get it.
well, I
But
know enough to like I'm like because like Muslims have like a whole prayer ritual that has to do with like a ritual form of submission, like the whole like getting on their
mm,
knees and bending down and that kind of thing. And it was they just all were very experienced with it, and I was just like that's I don't I
that's awesome. Yeah, I will say that I grew up in a lot of pretty loosey goosey churches where we didn't really have things like that. So like even the most basic milk toast Christian recital thing, like saying the Lord's Prayer. I'd never heard of that in my life until I was in college. Cause everyone was like, yeah, you know, the one thing that we all know how to recite. And I was like, news to me. I don't know this one. Never heard of it.
I only know a little bit of the Lord's Prayer, uh, only from I believe an Iron Maiden song.
Mm, that's where they got it from.
Ah. But this is a podcast that's not about religion at all, called "It's Probably Not Aliens."
It's
Um,
sometimes about
today it
religion.
isn't.
It's not of,
It's kind of about religion today,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah. I, well, this is exciting because I am Scott Nicewander. I'm one of the hosts, and I know nothing. And Tristan, you got to experience what it was like to know, well, not nothing, but you know, to be in a place where you weren't the person doing all the talking.
Yeah,
That's nice. That's fun.
yeah, it was quite an experience. But yeah, this is a podcast where we talk about ancient aliens, ancient astronauts, pseudo history, pseudo archaeology, and basically conspiracy theories in the sci-fi section. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and today we're sort of coming closer to the end. I think we got one more after this of a little bit on angels. So we're talking about angels.
Talking about angels. You
Uh,
ever watch the show Angel
no,
spinoff
no,
from Buffy?
I tried watching. I was trying to watch Buffy because everyone was telling me it was really good, and then
Yeah.
all the Joss Whedon stuff happened, and I didn't know if I should keep watching it.
I was in the same thing because my parents wouldn't let me watch Buffy growing up because it had vampires and demons and stuff, and that's not godly. So I wasn't able to watch that. But then when I got older, I watched all the other Joss Whedon things, like all of them, like obviously Firefly, and I watched Dollhouse, and there were other ones, I'm sure. But then I never watched Buffy or Angel, so I feel, and then yeah, and then all the Joss Whedon stuff came out, and I was like, I don't really want to watch this, which kind of sucks because I feel like people really love Buffy.
Yeah, I know. So, there's some Gen Xers that like Buffy like defined their like teenager years or whatever.
Buffy is their Harry
Yeah.
Potter.
But today we're going to talk about an interesting cultural phenomenon that Ancient Aliens has been feeding into. And I think it's kind of apropos for just today, actually, yesterday, more specifically. Um,
Mm.
I say ominously to my friend who lives somewhat close to Washington, D.C.
Wait, I have an ominous sound effect. I reloaded the soundboard.
Ooh, okay. So what does a TV show about ancient aliens, what connects that to an image that people have of dudes storming the Capitol building wearing medieval crusader gear?
I don't know, but nothing good.
No. And
This is the worst riddle I've ever heard.
the thing that I'm pointing out, the claim that we're going today with is that if you watch Ancient Aliens, a lot of their references to angels in this angels episode specifically refers to them as being heavenly messengers, and we talked about them being messengers and all that kind of stuff. But also, many of the references of them being aliens and such still refer to them being soldiers and being militaristic in one way or another.
This is interesting, Tristan, because if anyone doesn't know this about me, I'm a huge fucking nerd. And I made several videos recently about the new Superman movie, and I have many thoughts to say about aliens, which Superman is, being militaristic. Zack Snyder was all about, we're going to make Superman military, which is so weird.
Zack Snyder and James Gunn engaged with the same lore about Kryptonites or Kryptonians, but they had entirely different interpretations of what that meant.
Wildly different.
But yeah, so we see here like Ezekiel's vision of a spaceship encounter. There's like claims that like that had like weapons and everything involved, but also that Vimanas were ancient battlecraft. The assertion that Quetzalcoatl was an alien visitor who moved with advanced weaponry, and that angels had flying swords that stood in as energy weapons. So are kind of going into this area.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about these before in the past. We've made episodes about basically all of these before, and it's one of those things where I didn't really put it together until you said it. But yeah, the sort of common theme for all of them is weaponry, military, aliens. It's no aliens are just coming just to like kind of say hi. They're always like, I'm going to fight now.
I'm either going to fight you or put stuff in your butt. There's only two options.
There are two options. And if they put stuff in your butt, you don't fight them. Don't fight them on it. Just relax. Loosen up.
Oh, God. I don't even know where to...
I didn't know where I was going with that one. So, editor, feel free to edit that out.
Nope, too funny.
So why don't we like get into a little bit about what I'm actually like breaking down? Because I know that was kind of a vague claim. This one I kind of started with the most specific, and I'm getting into the most vibey near the end. So as I'm trying to put a bigger bow on the entire thing. So Giorgio Tsoukalos. So first of all, Giorgio.
Love the guy.
A person we all are familiar with.
We're struggling.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy. He has a person we met in person. We didn't actually interact with him, I guess. We were at a show that he was in. I guess on that sense, like a lot of people met Taylor Swift. But either way. But in the Giorgio Tsoukalos says in the episode, quote, every legend of the Archangel Michael slaying demons is really a battle report of alien soldiers under orders. And the episode even has a reenactment of Ezekiel's vision with celestial messengers morphing into armored extraterrestrials conducting strategic assaults on human settlements.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. The show replaces theological language around angels, which are associated with worship, guidance, or ministry, with military jargon, command centers, strike teams, and occupational forces. And so ancient aliens seem to have come to Earth, but their main focus was to militarily conquer humans through technological superiority, which is presented as a sort of cosmic law and not like a political choice. Because, angels are a representation of divine mandate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You get messages from God sends them down and is like, hey, this will happen to you. Or they'll be like, hey, don't do this. Yeah, they're really just sort of, they're sort of like, I was going to call them video game tutorials. They just sort of pop out of nowhere and is like, hey, press the A button to jump. That's kind of what angels are.
I did hear a lot of like the Old Testament is like God came down with angels and told a prophet that the Jews should not be doing X thing. Then the Jews went off and did X thing, and it did not go well.
Didn't go great for him. Yeah, there was a lot of that also. It's just sort of tests that weren't even designed as tests. Just straight up defiance, I would imagine.
I actually have a book somewhere by Zach Weinersmith called The Bible Annotated Beyond All Possible Usefulness. And it is it's the only Bible I've ever read cover to cover because it summarizes in a funny way the entirety of every book of the Bible to like one sentence per book.
Oh, that's pretty good. What is the book of Numbers? Is the sentence just numbers?
I don't know. I just checked.
They took a census.
Oh boy. So what we're looking into is like how like these like divine messengers or heralds become military commanders when examined through the ancient aliens lens, and how this transformation does cause and this isn't just ancient aliens, but like the logic of like taking these messages about like messengers, heralds, people who are bringing messages from divine, turning them into military commanders and like sort of militaristic aspects, and how that creates a psychological conditioning that is, conducive with authoritarianism. And
we're here already. It's so quick to get into this.
Yeah, and, well, I'm kind of framing it a little bit because
I get you,
and specifically because we're talking about the United States, because Ancient Aliens is most popular in the United States. It's specifically reframing appeals to American audiences who are anxious about maintaining dominance over civilization. A thing that
this is interesting. Go for it.
Yeah, so that's where we're going to go. So first I'm going to just like start with the part where why don't we just get it out of the way about like why angels weren't military commanders, they weren't alien
Let's do it, because here's the thing that I will say. In the summer, in 2025, the year 2025, in the month of July, we had 2 superhero movies, both featuring aliens as key roles. And one of them, Fantastic Four, literally had a herald for Galactus to destroy entire civilizations. That's interesting.
Silver
but
Surfer.
And then again in the Superman movie, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Some contrast. There's some contrast between this one and, again, as I say, the Zack Snyder one, where he was basically just, I am wearing an alien suit of armor. That's what the Superman costume was. It was, I am just wearing military armor from Krypton, and I'm going to stand with the U.S. military to protect the Earth. Everything's very military Superman versus this new Superman who is definitely not. I have to relate everything to superhero movies. That's how I know how to learn things.
You're staying on brand.
Yeah. All right. I'll interrupt and I'll interject here and there with things, but
no problem.
Let's continue.
So we may be trying to return to some common things that we've talked about in earlier episodes. So to go through, the first thing is that, etymologically, angels actually come from the Greek word angelos, which is the term messenger, not warrior. So that is your first, being like, this doesn't really have a whole lot to do with warriors or war. Early Christian theology, like in the book Hebrews 1:14, references to angels being, quote, ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation. Not exactly conquer or destroy or anything like that. No.
They're not gonna raise their fist at you.
Yeah. And also angels do, to go into a bit of comparative mythology, I know this will for those who believe in the literal existence of angels, this might be a little blasphemous. But a lot of what we think of angels is borrowed from several aspects, like Christian angels, I should say, are borrowed pretty heavily from common other, actually Hebrew angels too, because they were all kind of in the same milieu. But if you look at the Greek/Roman gods of Hermes and Mercury, you have a lot of the beginning of what angels' roles are in the sort of Christian cosmology, which is that they are interpreters and mediators, just like Hermes, who facilitate the flow of understanding and knowledge between the realms. That is the role that Hermes plays in Greek spirituality.
He's the messenger. He's got little wings on his little feetsies.
Yeah, and angels kind of play a very similar role. And there's probably a mythological, because, Greeks and ancient Hebrews and even and later on Christians and Romans all in the same sort of area of the Mediterranean would definitely be comparing stories and building off of each other. So the thing is, Hermes, not known for being a warrior.
No. In the Disney movie, he's pretty... he's at most a cheerleader. At best.
Yeah, exactly. And other examples that are used as Iris, who's a rainbow goddess who's described as being a fleet-footed artisan of peace who beautifully connected gods and humans. The idea is that these, proto-angels, demigods, gods of the old faith that then kind of had some syncretic relationships with Abrahamic ideas of angels, all even if they aren't actually connected, they exist. And we've kind of covered this in other things before. These stories exist because they fit the same psychological function, which was to create a sense of assurance and to create an idea that there is a way for the realm of mortals and the realm of the divine to connect. That's what angels appear as. They are the one kind of line of connection between heaven and earth. And in many of these other
bridge,
and in many of these other faiths, they fulfill the same purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not when you think about angels and you think about their role,
and
they don't really fit the sort of battle aspect to them.
No.
There's also just a lot of what I would just call ancient aliens related creative interpretations. So Ezekiel's vision, which we did a whole episode on way long time ago, presents Ezekiel's vision as, quote, having military precision and securing territory like a conquering army. But that isn't what they are. If you look at the actual Bible and you look at the actual context, what it is that Ezekiel's angels or creatures were carrying God's throne, not conducting military operations. They literally explain them as...
Are you saying ancient aliens would misinterpret something or even straight up lie about something?
The least fun episodes of this show are when they... when I dig into it, I'm like, oh, they just made this up.
Yeah.
That this is a case of they're adding... it's not... This is the part where I think is interesting, because they're not exactly misinterpreting it. They're just elaborating and describing things using militaristic language that necessarily is not present in the actual text. Saying that they moved with military precision is a thing anybody can say about anything, but it makes a connection where there wasn't a connection before.
That's true.
Plus, the original text has nothing about conquests. That is just pure invention. And again, I feel like this feels all this feels like kind of retreading stuff, but it's a case of them cherry picking evidence, just looking for small things that fit their overall hypothesis and don't do a comprehensive analysis, which might disagree with them because, you just pick out the handful of things that make your case look good and ignore all the contrary evidence, and you end up with a pretty compelling looking thing.
That's fair. Do you think if someone described it, just to kind of go back to your point of describing them as moving with military precision might put an idea in your head of oh, then maybe they were militaristic beings. It's almost similar to if I said they moved with surgical precision. You'd be like, oh, these are scientific sort of crafty sort of things. It's just the language makes it sort of embellishes it a little bit.
Yeah, it's an implication.
Skews it in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is the reason why we are on season 2 of the show, but episode, I want to say 139 of this show, is because Ancient Aliens is a regular user of what's called the Gish-Gallop technique, which is, I feel like we talked about before, but I think is one of the number one things that Ancient Aliens and conspiracy theorists in general do to make themselves seem more credible than they actually are, which is just overwhelming viewers with many, many, many fake things that take longer to unpack and debunk than to actually just say. And when you do this, either in a show where there's nobody responding, it makes you feel like you have a really well-researched, comprehensive case. You do it in a debate, it makes the other person seem like they're unprepared, because if you just keep throwing random shit at them, even if it's all bad, it's going to make the person responding seem less credible. And we've even learned that when like comes to like public debates and stuff like that, which I now have kind of issue with, no matter how things go, if you look like you are on the defense, the perception will be that you are losing, even if you are right and they're just making shit up.
Yeah. I have a great example of this, topical for me recently, talking once again about Superman. Enemy of the show, Ben Shapiro.
Friend of the show, Ben Shapiro.
No, not friend, never friend. Ben Shapiro made a video reviewing the Superman movie, and it was like 20 minutes long, and then I made a video debunking all the things that he got wrong, like factually, not like if you're going to analyze it and have your own opinion, that's fine. But there's a lot of stuff that he just said that was factually wrong about Superman's history as a character. And that took me almost twice as long, I think over twice as long to debunk. And we cut a lot of stuff out too. So just a great example of what you're talking about, of like, it takes Ben microseconds to say something wrong, and it takes me full minutes to explain why it was wrong. But he'll just keep saying things and moving on to the next thing because he talks really fast, and that makes him seem like he knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't.
And it probably doesn't surprise you that Ben Shapiro has a background in debate.
This is something I've had to talk about with other people, family members who
Ben Shapiro, world's oldest 12-year-old.
I have family members who like Ben Shapiro, and I always have to tell them that, like, do you think it's impressive that he, as a nearly 40-year-old man, I actually don't know how old he is, but I assume he's near 40s, is debating college kids? Like, do you think that's impressive?
Who have no media training.
He crushed these college kids. Yeah, they're kids.
Yeah, he's 41.
Yeah, and he's like 40? He is in his 40s. And you think that's cool that he does that? That's awesome. That's wild that you think that. That's cool that you're so comfortable with yourself. That's neat.
The US really hates college students, it seems. It seems like they're like really out to get college students. I don't know what college students ever did to them, but yeah.
I don't know either, man.
I don't know either. So to just kind of get all of that out of the way, that is like why, like, there's no actual strong connections about the image of angels in the military. So then why do we have all these connections about like warrior angels, which leads to other troubling imagery? And it didn't start with Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens is definitely building on a long tradition that is almost as old as Christianity itself. And we'll get into that, but first, we have to hear from guaranteed to not be a warrior angel, the products and services that support the show.
Yeah, this is a message from our angel investors. Not really.
It's gonna be Nebula.
It's gonna be Nebula.
All right, I need to pitch you Nebula, and I need you to know I'm aware of how this looks. We spend every episode of this show breaking down extractive systems that manufacture bullshit to profit off people, and now I'm here asking you to subscribe to something. I get it. The subscription economy is exhausting. You're probably already juggling Patreon, Netflix, Spotify, and whatever else. And the platforms extracting value from creators keep getting worse. Adding another monthly charge kind of sounds like hell. But here's the thing. Nebula is structurally different in a way that actually matters. Nebula is creator-owned, not creator-friendly, owned. When you subscribe, your money goes directly to shows like this one, not to a VC board optimizing for quarterly returns. It's the closest thing we've got to opting out of the algorithmic hellscape while still supporting people making stuff you actually want to watch. And here's where it gets better. Nebula has a lifetime membership. Normally, lifetime is $500, but with our link, go.nebula.tv/probablynotaliens, you get it for $300. That's a one-time fee. You have it forever. No adding to your subscription pile. So, for this show specifically, Nebula subscribers get episodes a week early. You can literally listen to next week's episode right now after you finish this one. Plus, we do an exclusive Q&A every season. So it's less premium content locked behind a paywall and more community. It's participating in the thing you're already part of. So look, I'm not going to pretend subscribing to things isn't annoying. It is. But if you're looking for a way to support independent creators that doesn't feed the extraction machine, Nebula is an actual answer. So go to go.nebula.tv/probablynotaliens. $300, lifetime access, episodes early, and you're done. No more renewal emails, no more getting nickel and dimed, just the content and the people making it getting paid fairly.
All right, Tristan, would you be my angle and my devile?
If you can't handle me at my worst, if you can't handle me at my devil, then you can't have me at my angle. Yeah. That sounds like a MySpace post from 2005.
That's the one. We got there.
So
thank you, Tumblr.
So let's talk a little bit about Emperor Constantine.
Okay, sure.
So this is like
good movie.
This is like how empires actually took militarized angels or how it took angels, made them militarized, and used them as a symbol of. This is kind of like, I guess like I'm going to talk about the really big thing. So I don't know if people.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever mentioned on this show. I probably have, but like my educational background is I have 2 master's degrees. One is in American cultural studies and one is in American history. And I did this like blue sky thread a little while back about like how America is fundamentally shaped by like bouncing between like 4 different poles of identity. And 2 of them come from being made up of basically the Christians who were too intense and hardcore for Europe. And it is this fundamental fact about Christianity that we're going to talk about how that kind of changed. But Christianity is theologically at its core a religion that started up as a resistance to imperial authority. It was a religion started by a people who had been conquered by the Romans. It had gained popularity with people who had been oppressed and who had been laid low by Roman authority. They were actively persecuted for much of their early years, and much of Christian theology is built around the idea that the Christians are being oppressed and that they are going to one day be free and the world will end and everything will be great. That is in stark contrast to what happened after Constantine, where Christianity becomes the religion of the empire. And I would say that it's not probably that controversial to say that if you were to take the totality of human history, Christianity has been the religion of more conquerors and oppressors than probably any other religion in history. And that's
well, it's because we got all those angels.
Well, the thing is that this is like the fundamental contradiction that makes America, that shapes a lot of American culture, is that it is a imperial project. You know, it conquered all of the current continental United States. It had spent the 20th century exerting its influence and military power over much of the world. But at the same time, it practices a religion that is based around that was built by people who had been conquered, who are trying to find liberation from oppression. And I think that if you think about Christianity and like American identity as like a weird dialectic between feeling like you're oppressed and being the oppressor, like I feel like to a lot of Americans, like that dynamic makes a lot of America make sense. Is that people are trying to simultaneously be the oppressed and the oppressor at the same time. And
it's that classic tweet of that person who put a bullseye on their head, and it's like how it feels to be a Republican in the United States. And someone was like, that's a perfect analogy because it's a fake target and you put it there yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to go into the other 2 because it's not related to this, but I do think that this is like one of the major transformations that Christianity does sort of in the 4th century that we have to kind of get into. And it starts with Constantine, or, you know, very, very, you know, very loosely, but Emperor Constantine converted a symbol of sacrifice into a battle standard with something called the in hoc signo vinces. This is called this symbol is called the Kairos. So I'm going to go into more detail on this. So in 312,
I know this.
Oh yeah? Okay, I guess I'm
I know the name Kairos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of Bible college.
Because of Bible college.
Did I mention I went to Bible college? Have I mentioned that recently?
It's been handy this season. Okay.
It has been handy.
So in 312, on the eve of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Emperor Constantine is said to have experienced a transformative vision. I'm sure most Christians probably know this story in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And according to historical sources, specifically two called Eusebius and Lactantius, Constantine saw a cross of light, or the Kairos symbol, which you can see there. It's like a kind of Greek symbol, I want to say, in the sky above the sun.
Yeah.
Which was accompanied by the words in Greek letters, which had been later rendered into Latin as in hoc signo vinces, or by this sign conquer.
Ooh.
The thing, though, is that the Kairos symbol is formed by superimposing the first two Greek letters of the word Christ, the chi and rho, on top of each other, which had previously been used by persecuted Christians as a sign of faith and often associated with sacrifice and martyrdom. Do you see where I'm going here?
I do see where you're going with this.
So this sign that was like by persecuted minority, that was about sacrifice and martyrdom, Constantine, arguably one of the most powerful people in the world at that time, because he's like the fucking Roman emperor, says he sees that symbol and that he is told by divine mandate that by this sign, conquer. So conquer in the name of this symbol of sacrifice and martyrdom.
Sacrifice and martyrdom, yeah.
And inspired by his vision, Constantine ordered that emblem to be displayed on his soldier's shield, and adopted it as the imperial military standard, which transformed its meaning pretty quickly from being a hidden religious symbol used to identify other people who believed in this religion, all about self-supplication, sacrifice, and, death, because, the founder of the religion literally killed himself
not to jump in here, but quite famously, the guy who the religion's named after did turn the other cheek.
Or more notably, the most important thing he did, he literally died to redeem all of mankind. Like, it's like the ultimate sacrifice for others. That is
the main thing that he's known for is that he did die on purpose.
Yeah.
He was like, I will die.
Yeah, there's like a whole Gethsemane thing, right? Where he's like, do I really gotta die? And then it's like, yeah. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I trust you, Dad.
That's the one Bible story that I know the name of, Gethsemane, because of a thing I was making for Trench Crusade, but that's a different story. Anyways, so inspired by his vision, we did. So this hidden religious symbol turned into a public battle standard of victory and divine favor, and signaled a dramatic change in the perception of the role of Christianity in the Roman Empire. A once persecuted minority faith became symbolically tied to imperial power and military success. And so once Constantine had his victory, the Cairo and the phrase in hoc signo vinces would become an enduring symbol of Christian triumph, and it would appear on coins, banners, and official imperial regalia through his reign and beyond.
This is, and again, because I have to relate it to comic books and superheroes again, this is quite literally what Zack Snyder wanted to do with the Superman symbol. It's like, it literally means hope, right? It's a good thing, it's a nice message. But then the movies kept being like, hey, do you want to see how this symbol is put on Krypton military uniforms, and you want to see people beat each other up with this symbol on and fight each other and just have like military battles with this big S on? Isn't that cool? And it's like, no, that's the opposite of what I want.
Mm-hmm. Really, if you think about it, the two visions of Christianity can really be boiled to James Gunn versus Zack Snyder's concepts of Superman. Superman is Jesus, and James Gunn and Zack Snyder are the two differing opinions about what Jesus is supposed to be like. It actually is kind of perfect. It's
pretty good.
Yeah.
Snyder definitely was like, Superman is Jesus.
So you probably don't need to be told a whole lot of history to know that Christianity then became the official religion of the Roman Empire. Roman Empire collapses. But the Church of Rome becomes a like enduring force, even though, Constantine was kind of closer to Greek. So like, the Eastern Orthodox Church of today. But this idea of like Christianity being associated with empire and conquest and military victory still persists as a powerful myth in Europe and the Near East. And then we get, and this is how we're getting ourselves closer to the January 6th. We then we get into the 11th century, specifically the year 1095. Now, do you know the significance of the year 1095? Did they teach that in Bible college?
They taught that in accounting.
Oh, yeah, it's a tax form in America.
Sorry. I was gonna say. I was hoping you. I was like. It immediately crossed my mind. I was like, do they even have that in Canada?
They make me fill out something called something like a 1095 whenever I make money from American companies, but I don't know what it is.
Oh, there you go. All right. I'm glad it landed. It tracked a little bit.
Yeah. We do taxes too. We also have that.
I figured your forms would have different numbers.
They do. They definitely do. The IRS definitely makes it much more complicated than CRA does, but Canada has the same stupid TurboTax like bullshit that America has, where like we could make tax easier, but we just don't, because TurboTax keeps lobbying the government into not letting us do it. So auto filing. Anyways, in 1095, Christianity changed yet again to become even more militarized with the Council of Clermont in under Pope Urban II. So the Council of Clermont, which was held from November 17th to 27th in Clermont, France, by Pope Urban II, was a assembly to do church reform, but also a response to a request from military aid from Byzantine Emperor, which was the Byzantine Empire was like the Roman Empire of the East, like it was the Greek Orthodox based in Constantinople Roman Empire. But today, to distinguish them from the Rome that we know, we typically call it the Byzantine Empire. So Emperor Alexius I requested military aid because the Byzantines were being invaded by the Seljuk Turks, which is like part of the very long process of the Byzantine losing a lot of its territory, to the point where, I mean, today most of the Byzantine Empire is modern day Turkey because it was conquered by the Turks. So to the point where, I'm sure that everyone's going to quote the song where the whole idea is that the former capital of
it's been going on in my head this whole time.
Just so that everybody can get it out of their system, because I feel like it's the musical equivalent of telling you that what's his name broke his toe when he kicked the helmet in The Lord of the Rings. Everyone has to tell you that they know this song exists and it is their one touch point for it. But the capital of the Byzantine Empire was called Constantinople, named after Emperor Constantine.
What?
And then when the Turks took it over, it got renamed to Istanbul, which it is named to this day.
Well, that's nobody's business but the Turks.
Yeah. Okay. So the Seljuk Turks had been conquering much of Byzantine territory, and they also had conquered Jerusalem, which by the time of 1095 had been pretty firmly under Muslim control for like a long time. The Muslims, Islam began in the 7th century in modern day Saudi Arabia, but spread very quickly across the Middle East, and Jerusalem, one of the holiest sites in Christianity, also became an important religious site to Islam. And a lot of the local people in Jerusalem became Muslims. I mean, it was a religious melting pot. There's a whole bunch of religions. There were still Christians there, there's still Jews there, there's still people from dozens of faiths still there. But the majority of people had started to convert to Islam, and the rulers of the region were Muslim rulers. And the Seljuks were kind of one of those rulers at that time. And the thing, though, is that at this time, Christians would go on pilgrimages where they would go on long treks across Europe to the Holy Land as sort of like a religious rite. And when you do that, though, there are common, paths that people would take, because you couldn't just hop on a Spirit Airlines and go over to visit the Holy Spirit. So you had to walk on like well-known highways, And if you could think about it,
That's a good joke.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that was
Okay.
a pretty good joke, Tristan. I like it a lot.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm here till Thursday. But yeah, so like the thing is that Christians who would be on pilgrimage to Jerusalem would be going along common highways because the routes to get there would become well known, and you want to go to the places that have towns to stay in and things like that all along the way. And you can imagine that that also means that those routes became pretty dangerous because people would just rob people who were on their pilgrimage because it'd be pretty easy to do so.
Yeah.
And so this was considered the fault of the Seljuks because they were not Christians, and Christians were being threatened by them having to go to Jerusalem and getting robbed on the way there. So, and the other thing too is that Europe was in a near constant state of violent war. So, if you know, I'm sure that this feels like a thing that's like fairly intuitive because, you know, all of our fairy stories and all of our like medieval fantasy stuff says this, but like Europe was a really weird state where basically there was a strange mix of like contractual landlords who would have landlords who ruled over other landlords who ruled over peasants. And the sort of like a pyramid scheme of rulership where like a king, or, you know, a king was somebody who owned like a bunch of territory, but really they only had like a little bit of territory that they could truly call their own. What they would have is that they would have several dukes, counts, viscounts, barons, who would have signed a contract of feudal pledge to them to be like their vassals. And the thing, though, is that these titles would be passed down through inheritance. And while like we have an idea of inheritance being rather like a kind of stable system of it, which is called primogeniture, which is where the first child gets all titles. That wasn't always the case. And also it was different in different cultures and at different times. And fairly often, one of the more common ways of succession in Europe was not primogeniture, which actually is kind of more of a thing for like the more later mature Middle Ages. But in the early times, you, like with any other thing that you willed, your titles would be split up amongst your kids. And so if, say, like, you know, you had...
But I'm the oldest boy.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest boy. I wish I had that on my soundboard. You ever watch Succession?
No, I got to get to it at some point. But the idea is that like they would spread them out. And fairly often, to get around these kinds of laws, they would do stuff like, hey, second son, you have to become a priest now, because when you become a priest, you have to renounce all titles. So therefore, the titles can just go to the one kid, like that kind of thing. But also, you know, if you inherited the title, but say you sucked at the job that your dad gave to you by ruling over things, but your younger brother or your brother-in-law was like a really successful conqueror, like a really good warrior over there, they may be like, you know what, actually, I'm going to take that title by force. And all this was just like a sort of... it was just a sort of...
This is really... You're just describing Succession. You're just describing the TV show Succession.
Fair enough. I guess Succession really nailed it. But the idea is, imagine Succession, but every ruler in Europe and every like local government is doing Succession all the time.
That's awesome.
And that would explain why Europe was basically in a near constant state of war, and was
like the show Succession. Oh man.
And so, and this war was causing a lot of struggle because there was just so much like private warfare happening between like knights and nobles and different rulers and stuff like that, that Europe had become kind of like a destroyed backwater, while like in places like the Middle East, where they didn't have these kinds of succession laws, the Muslim rulers were like, you know, getting very rich off of trade from China. They were like, a lot of the world was like, you know, advancing and like having a lot of stuff, while like Europe was really like locked into these unending wars that kind of held it back. So, and also it meant that the church was also struggling to maintain its control over the continent, because basically all the powerful Christian rulers in the world were just fighting each other instead of, working together. So they decided to take the violence of the sort of Constantine idea and turn violence from part of religion into an actual sacred duty. So Pope Urban II transformed the Christian understanding of violence by presenting something called, that was like a mix of a holy war and a pilgrimage, which they called
Okay.
a crusade.
There we go.
And what it made is like a violent invasion into the Holy Land, mix like literally following the pilgrim trails with an army, with the effort to get to the Holy Land and conquer the Holy Land. That is like the idea of a crusade. At least that's how it started. The other crusades were a disaster. There was several more, and they were a complete shit show that I'm not going to get into. It's way beyond the scope of this podcast. So that's where. So in case people were wondering where Crusades came from, there you go. And also, it would make as like part of Urban's plan of like inducing the crusade. It also meant that the art of going to war for Christendom was actually considered a spiritual act. And it was actually not something like in the past, these like, nobles and knights who would fight each other, they would still have to do penance for all the violence they did because, Christianity still kind of clung on to the idea that violence is bad. Sometimes they would do some funny workarounds, like a king would buy an abbot or an abbotry, or I don't know what you would call it, but they would have a bunch of friars, and the friars' whole job was to do prayers in order to do penance in the name of the king, who could then go and do all the war and conquering, knowing that he like kind of worked out a way to handle all of his debts.
I'm familiar with all the workarounds. Growing up, I was, literally one of the commandments is like, thou shalt not kill, but if you, depending on the translation, it could be thou shalt not murder. And then some people would say, like, oh, so like if I were to go speaking of like military stuff again, like if I were to enlist in the military and go, and I were to, have to kill someone overseas or wherever, that's okay because that's not murder.
Yeah, and
that's killing.
That kind of like reinterpretation of Christian theology to make it more militaristic is like a direct inheritance of this sort of lineage. So, so it also the sort of Crusades also introduced the idea of the warrior saint. One of the examples would be Saint George or Saint Michael the Archangel or Saint Sebastian, who are venerated as, quote, champions of Christ. So like warriors of Christ, and it turned violent. So Urban was actually very clever because what he did is he redirected all of this feuding, all of these knights who were fighting each other, and got them all focused on a single holy purpose, which was to fight non-Christians and go to the Holy Land, where a lot of like those knights who were like, some of those like siblings and stuff like that who did not have any titles that were passed down to them could go and maybe take some free land and claim it for themselves and stuff like that. And so a lot of the Crusaders were like losers because they were just like people who couldn't succeed in like, their society. And it was a really easy way to get rid of a lot of people, like useless sons and stuff like that. Anyways,
I gotta play you a song at some point later in this episode. I'm gonna pull up a song that I haven't heard in probably close to 15 years, but it has been stuck in my head forever. It is a Christian song, but you talking about all of this, specifically this bigger theme about the militarization of Christianity and things like that. It really does hit home for me how many songs we sing about being the army of the Lord.
Onward Christian soldiers marching on to war or something like that, right? Like that's like
that's
one of those songs.
That's one of them for sure. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this innovation that Urban II puts in. He promised something called plenary indulgences. So if you were to go take up the cross and go to the Holy Land to fight, you would get complete forgiveness from all sins.
Okay.
Huge.
That's pretty huge.
That's pretty big.
That's huge, actually.
Yeah. Urban also promised that those who died on crusade would get immediate remission of their sins and go directly to heaven and bypass purgatory. I don't think anybody does purgatory anymore.
They get a fast pass? They get a Disney fast pass to heaven? That's incredible.
They also got something called penitential substitution, which is that a crusade journey could substitute all required penance as declared. So whoever for devotion alone, not to gain honor or money, goes to Jerusalem to liberate the church of God can substitute this journey for all penance. So you never have to atone for your sins again. This gave the warrior saint also gave Crusaders this idea that they had divine authorization to do what they were doing. They believed that they were literally God's instruments in a divine war. Again, the religion made by people who were ironically in Jerusalem, who had been oppressed by Roman rulers, who literally was someone who sacrificed his own life to save other people and was like explicitly about peace and forgiveness and love. Now is the person behind this, is now the symbol behind soldiers of Christ, who were going to the Holy Land where Jesus was from in order to conquer the people of that region who were not of their religion and start and take their stuff. So knights could maintain that they were they would have spiritual salvation without becoming a monk. So they could have like a secular lifestyle. They didn't have to absolve from sex or titles or anything like that, but they could still get all of the sort of absolution that a monk would get by taking up the arms to go to Jerusalem. And fighting, you think the opposite of a peaceful religion, became a holy act, but only if it was directed against the, quote, enemies of Christ. So violence was turned from a sin into something that was actually full of spiritual rewards.
Awesome. What a twist.
Yeah. And an extremely big symbol of irony, Crusaders would sew crosses into their clothing as a sign of their sacred vow and their special status. The act of taking the cross became a religious ceremony that transformed knights into holy warriors. And beyond spiritual rewards, Crusaders received legal protections, debt forgiveness, and church protection for their families and property. So they also got a bunch of other, more secular benefits. So the crown
Can I say, I'm not afraid to admit it. I always do. I feel a little icky whenever I play a paladin in D&D. Just doesn't feel right. Just doesn't feel right to me.
Well, paladins actually their origin is a little different from this. There's actually
okay.
If you, I don't want to get too far off things, but it was about maybe like a couple hundred years before this. Paladins are specifically a reference to a group of knights that fought with I want to say King Roland, but I want to make sure. So the Dupin are the 12 legendary knights who are the foremost members of Charlemagne's court. Okay. But trying to remember Battle of... Okay.
You've derailed us.
No, okay. I thought that it was a reference to, like, a lot of what we think of as paladins are from, like, these ideas of crusaders. Like, that's not incorrect. So crusaders are definitely part of, like, the imagery of the D&D paladin, but also there's sort of like a Christian version of the Battle of Thermopylae, which was the Battle of Tours.
Okay.
Which was when, for a long time, what would be today the Iberian Peninsula, like Spain and Portugal, was ruled over by a group of like different Muslim emirs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, that was going to be a bigger deal, and there was a time where there was like a Muslim conquest that was going to go into France, and the Battle of Tours was where like the King of France, I think he died in the fight with like a lot of his like closest soldiers fighting the like Muslims back, and they never really recovered. And so like that battle, I don't know how true it is, but that battle kind of is thought of as like the reason why like Europe stayed Christian rather than become Muslim when like the rest of the Middle East did. Anyways.
Gotcha.
So this was this idea of holy war became embedded in medieval Christianity. But to kind of go back to the actual Clermont, the immediate response when he made all of these changes and this call for a holy war / pilgrimage, i.e. crusade to the Holy Land, was to shout in Latin. All the people they shouted, "God wills it, God wills it," which will, I'm sure now, because of modern times being so fucked up, translates into Latin as Deus vult. Now we're starting to get close to where like the white supremacists are starting to come into picture. So
yeah.
The idea, though, of earning salvation through holy war became an important part of medieval Christianity and endured through centuries of religious warfare. And it also the spiritual awards motivated tens of thousands of people from all social classes to join the First Crusade. So it was a fairly successful project, although, they conquered Jerusalem, but they didn't really hold it for very long, and then they lost basically every other crusade afterwards. So
I was gonna say I did a big essay on the Crusades when I was in college, and I remember just being like, "All right, so pretty strong start." And then just whiff after whiff after whiff, gang.
Yeah.
We didn't do great.
Including, I think the last crusade was or one of the last crusades anyway, was to was initiated by Venice to clear debts, and they actually ransacked Constantinople or something because
it was
something like that.
Yeah, can I say it was a genuine, as someone who I'll as mean as I can be, to the people who raised me and the community who raised me, I felt very fed a lot of propaganda about how cool Christians were and the Crusaders were and things like that, and then actually doing it, I'm just oh, this is embarrassing. Actually, the Crusades are kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. The Christian world and the Muslim world were there's very much Christians were thinking this is a holy war to end all things, and the Muslims didn't think that much about Christians. Because the thing is Islam is much less of an exclusionary religion. Under Islamic rule, there would be multiple different religions, including lots of Christians. A lot of Greek Christians would just find themselves living under Muslim rule. They were called people of the book. So in Islam, anybody who is part of an Abrahamic faith was allowed to practice their Abrahamic faith as people of the book. And the only thing that they would have to do is pay the jizya, which is a tax. But very often, a Muslim ruler's court would have Zoroastrians, would have Christians, would have Jews, all over the place. Even in Europe, in Iberia and Spain, you look at Muslim Toledo. Muslim Toledo was this epicenter of cross-religious cooperation and collaboration between Jews, Muslims, and Christians. Then, when the Reconquista happened and the Christians retook it over, they undid this with something called the Spanish Inquisition, which was a way to basically try to root out anybody who they weren't able to forcibly convert to Judaism or from Judaism or Islam. So,
man, history's interesting.
History's fun. Anyways, I'm sorry. I know I'm getting sidetracked here, but this is a huge innovation because it basically turned everything about Christianity on its head and made it its exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
By giving it papal authority and church support. And also by giving it that legitimacy, it also reinstated the church as the church is the head of Christendom then, because this is pre-Protestants. So the Catholic Church as the head of Christendom got reestablished. And so they were able to, regain that sort of power that was waning in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
And, it also mixes the Christian ideals with the sort of masculine ideals of the day of honor, adventure, and material gain, and getting rich, fighting, doing on big adventures, and associating that with holiness and goodness and stuff that was normally associated for priests and monks, otherwise known as nerds. So now it would be if you could get a degree in America, you could get hey, you can get a PhD in engineering if you're really, really good at football. And people would take it.
If only. Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit, and then this idea evolves again when we started getting into the period of colonization. So in 1452, there was a papal bull by the name of Dum Diversas, which was the authorized conquest of the Saracens and pagans that used divine mandate to justify basically genocide and dispossession. So in 1452, Pope Nicholas V made a decree that gave European Christian rulers, namely Portugal, the authority to conquer and subjugate the Saracens, which was a term for Muslims, pagans, and other non-Christians. So this meant that, according to the Pope, it's okay to kill and take land from others without any like probable cause or reason, as long as they're not Christians.
Cool.
And
that sounds like something Jesus would be super cool with.
yeah, and also Christianity, the Christian world was actually rather anti-slavery at this point. But then the Pope was like, actually, you can do slavery as long as the slaves are not Christians.
Once again, Jesus is up there being like, good going, gang. You're doing exactly what I wanted.
This is everything I wanted. Yeah.
This is what I taught, for sure.
So this reframed this rebuilt Christianity into an even more imperial language, because now not only was like war holy and possibly like, like it was good and divine, like mandated even, but now conquest and domination was now not even just a thing that you did to get money and steal from people, but it was now a religious duty. Christians had a duty to do these horrible things. And that led to other papal bulls like Romantis Pontifex Inter Caetera, which collectively formed the doctrine of discovery, which basically was like the religious rationalization for like the conquest of the world. Like a
manifest destiny sort of.
Yeah, like one good example is the Treaty of Tordesillas, which was when the New World was being discovered. The Pope came and drew a line on the map and said, like, Portugal, you can take this side, Spain, you can take this side. And that roughly is what began what would today be like the borders with like Brazil and like South America.
Oh.
Yeah. And so this framework legitimized further violence, genocide, forced conversions, dispossession of land and resources from indigenous people and non-Christians.
No, it doesn't sound like it would do that.
And so turned, again, the religion that was about peace from those who had been conquered and subjugated by an empire, and turned it into an empire that was actively encouraged, if not mandated, to conquer and subjugate other people.
Yes.
And these papal directives were used to justify, enslavement, displacement across Africa, in the Americas, and in Asia. And trust me, the Protestants, this was not a part of Christianity they had issues with. They definitely just latched onto this as well.
Mm-hmm. It is so interesting going through all this and like hearing the transition between like, all right, at the start, like, you don't do this. We don't go out and conquer. We don't go out and kill. That's not it. You don't do that. And then it's like, all right, well, you can do that in certain circumstances, and
like developed in a very specific like geopolitical context.
You can do this, and then it's like, you must do this. Actually, now it's you must do it.
So like you can see like how the idea develops. Like the religion basically would adapt to serve the interest of like the powerful class at that point, as religion tends to do. Sorry, but yeah, so like you see like
we're not there.
Yeah, we got this thing where it's like Constantine's soldiers had the Cairo on their shields. Crusaders then states erected cathedral fortresses with battle imagery. Augustine's just war theory evolved to sanction offensive campaigns against heretics. And then, but there were still like moral constraints. Confession, last judgment, sins requiring penance and violence remained still morally problematic. So Ancient Aliens does something a little bit different, which is that they actually
remember when we were talking about Ancient Aliens?
Yeah, here we go.
Oh my goodness.
So the thing is that you have this pattern of like, you must conquer, you must do this. But Christianity hangs on to one last little thing, which is that even today, most Christians would say violence is generally bad. If you sin, you have to get penance, and that you still have to, give confession and last judgment and all those things. Well, I don't know if the Protestants do those last two, but I don't know. Do Protestants do confessions?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think it's the Catholic thing.
I've never known what all the different sects are.
I'm pretty sure it's.
I've never done a confession. I thought it seems like it would be fun to do. Fun in air quotes. It seems like it would be a novel thing for me to do, having never done one.
I'm pretty sure it's a Catholic thing. Same with like last rites and stuff.
It's very Catholic. Yeah.
So what does Ancient Aliens? Ancient Aliens takes this logic and then gives it no judge. There's no sin because there is no God in their story. It is an alien. And therefore, like that militaristic image doesn't have to have the the last little tidbits of Christianity left, which is like, it's probably not good to kill people. It's probably not good.
Yeah. Forgiveness, penance, all this stuff. No, we don't have that part. You don't have to worry about.
And
it's just about cool aliens being fighting.
Yeah.
Cool aliens being
It also takes the sort of religious imperial logic and finds a secular root for it. Because now you don't even have to be Catholic to be into the idea of like angels are actually, because like angels can be warriors and conquest can be good because they're actually aliens. So it's fine.
It's true. Before we get to the part where you make us sad, can I play you what I think is the song that I remember hearing growing up? Now here's the thing. If this is the right one, it is a banger. If it's not the right one, then I'll have to find it again. But I'm hoping I got the audio playing okay. Here we go.
Are we walking into the enemy's camp, laying our weapons down, shedding our armor as we go, leaving it on the ground? We've gotta be strong in the power of his might, prove to the enemy. We are the army of the Lord and we've won the victory.
Anyway, it goes on. Could you hear any of that or no?
That sounds that's a really interesting spin on conquest, isn't it?
Yeah, it is true.
So I know that last little bit where
it goes kind of hard, right? Or no?
There's a lot of Christian songs that go hard until you like listen to them too hard.
It's true.
So is Ancient Aliens going to like completely strip the artifice of Christianity away from like a impersonal militaristic machine of death? No. Luckily for us, Ancient Aliens doesn't have that much sway over people at this point.
Okay.
But I do think that it is it expresses a desire in the secular worldview of modern day, especially United States, where even without Christianity, there is a desire to justify some types of militaristic ideas, like the idea that aliens would be militaristic in a sense that we would find very recognizable, to basically paint the idea that it is natural and that like it's just a logical thing that things that people do. I would argue that one of the things that we saw is that in these depictions of angels as being these militaristic conquerors is that we get scripts that technological superiority means legitimate authority, kind of creating a dichotomy between the advanced versus the primitive, and that, it's those who can conquer have the right to conquer, that kind of thing. And again, it frames violence as a natural law, because if it bypasses, like, it's not just a thing humans do, it's a thing that even aliens do.
Aliens do it,
and not that this is all
one of the only things they do.
Not that this is like explicit, but what this is it just it's an expression of a worldview kind of through the fiction. It's like we're analyzing Ancient Aliens like it's a piece of fiction. It gives a little bit of system justification because the cosmic hierarchy makes the inequality we see here appear, inevitable or normal, because if we live in a universe where some people are more advanced than others, then we can live in our world where some people are more advanced than others, and we can think that way. And it desensitizes us to the idea of hierarchical domination, and maybe doesn't even see it as a bad thing. So let's go to January 6, 2021. A day.
Do we have to?
A day which, according to official American History Now, nothing happened.
That is true. Wait, do I have a... Oh, yeah, I have this. Do you want me to play a stinger or no?
Yeah, do it.
I don't have
to. Do it. Yay.
Well, I don't remember anything happening on this day. January 6th, 2021. I don't even think we had a January 6th.
Yeah.
That year. It was a leap year. We didn't have one.
So on January 6th, 2021, there's going to be a day in the future. And like, not even like, if it isn't already happening now, like, I don't know when America is supposed to buy TikTok or whatever the fuck's going to happen. But there's definitely going to be a day where I'm going to go on TikTok and they're going to be like, the Chinese government is super evil because they censor their internet. They won't even, if you look up on TikTok, Tiananmen Square, nothing will show up. And then America will buy it. And if you look up January 6th on that TikTok app, nothing's going to show up.
It is weird. I will agree with you. Like, here's the thing, not to get too deep in it, but this is the part where Tristan makes you sad. But like, it is weird that we don't talk about it more. Right?
Yeah, there was an attempted coup of the American government by a group of far-right radicals, and we kind of just moved on, and then reelected the person who attempted the coup. Pretty wild.
And I think, and a lot of people got pardoned, right?
I should say you. They not only pardoned everybody who was associated with it, they are now starting to fire and prosecute anybody who tried to actually do anything about it.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, this is not the good times. We're not in the good times right now, everybody. So the thing is that on January 6th, some of the, insurrectionists actually put like medieval crosses and framed the attack as a crusade against the demons. There were even people who like chanted Deus Vult, i.e. God wills it, from the 1095 Papal Bull, did that at this thing in January 6, 2021. And like, there's a whole big thing about how like the American far right has really started to adopt medieval Catholic imagery and ideas specifically around crusading as like part of like a white supremacist ideology, because of like they could frame it as a holy war against the Muslims and like that sort of thing. It also got used by the president of the United States, and no, not the one you're thinking. Shortly after 9/11, another president named George W. Bush used crusading language when planning an invasion of Iraq,
I've heard of him.
Which you can imagine, not exactly a good thing to do. Now you kind of know why. Maybe you shouldn't frame an invasion of a pretty secular Middle Eastern country under the idea of crusade.
Yeah, not ideal.
Yeah. Like I said, Trump is pretty bad. He's still doing a lot of catch up to meet George Bush when it comes to sheer damage to the international order and to what's it called? Destroying America's reputation, bankrupting the country. Like the whole reason the 2008 recession happened is because the US went in shitloads of debt in order to fund 2 wars that it then lost.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we looked cool doing it though, right?
George,
all the movies, every movie and TV show told me we looked cool doing it.
I was saying is that I think we let George Bush off the hook way too easily for the shit he did. Yes.
I know, he just paints now, and everyone's like, look at him, he paints. He's just like a normal guy.
Yeah.
Forget all the other stuff.
Yeah. So like a lot of rural conservative parts of the country seem to have buy into this kind of thing. White male, like this is why like the thing about Ancient Aliens is so impactful, is because this is like the target audience of Ancient Aliens. Ancient Aliens is most popular in rural and conservative parts of the United States. Some of the most popular places, the Appalachian Mountains, not far from where you are actually. Rural New York and New England, and the Florida Panhandle. Those are like the big location demographics of Ancient Aliens. The demographic of Ancient Aliens viewers are predominantly white, predominantly male, and have a lot of anxieties about cultural and technological superiority. We're losing the AI to the Chinese or something.
Yeah, that's fair.
We got to buy another data center while China is building space stations and landing on the moon and making $10,000 electric cars. And
I gotta dry up Bikini Bottom. I gotta dry up Bikini Bottom because I need this AI to tell me how many Tylenol I can take today. But
yeah, so that's fun. And then also the Chinese will invent an AI that like is just as good, if not better, and uses like 1% of the energy. Because
oh boy,
turns out that American tech companies are under zero incentive to raise efficiency because they can just buy more shit. While in China, they're like, well, America embargoed all of the chips, so let's learn how to make a really good AI that doesn't use as much chips, and that is called DeepSeek. If anybody wants to go to
It's a huge story.
deepseek.com.
Months back.
Yeah. Okay. So there's also there's an overlap with there's an overlap between Ancient Aliens viewership and Fox News viewership. You might remember a little ways back we were in a video by the YouTuber Jose, who made a video about the UFO documentaries done by Tucker Carlson that kind of show that there's like a large overlap between like the Fox News audience and the sort of UFO Ancient Aliens audience. Yeah, and
that is true.
You know, the idea.
Also, I will say there, in a bright spot of news, this podcast has a weird overlap with people debunking right-wing grifters like Ben Shapiro, because I got a comment on my video saying, like, I watched this for 40 minutes before I realized I had heard your voice before, and it was from this podcast. So they weren't even watching my video because of me. They were just like, oh, I like It's Probably Not Aliens, and I like this video. Oh, what a coincidence. It's the same person in both.
Yeah.
So that's a bright spot for us.
Yeah, if Chicago taught us anything, it's that we have a very good audience, which is queer Zoomers who are like at least 10 years younger than us.
Which is so funny because we've always said that our podcast
It's a dad show.
Is for dads. It is not, apparently.
No, we learned that one real fast. God, that was a good time. Okay, so this also, like, Ancient Aliens and like this like depicting of like angels are actually these like militaristic conquering aliens creates a natural hierarchy. Like the idea that they're technological and culturally superior make it appear that it's cosmic law that there are some entities that are better than others. It means that violence is an inevitable cosmic constant. So political violence is actually just nature. And in many ways, like the core of one of the big core ideas of fascist ideology is that basically all groups of people are culturally or you know, biologically inferior or superior to others, and that violence between those groups is a natural, if not desirable, phenomenon. So that plays right into that idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, that the audience is aligned more with the advanced side rather than those subject to domination. Like, you would think that Ancient Aliens would depict all these as like, this is horrifying. Aliens are trying to conquer us. We should like not think this is cool, but they're like, this is so awesome. And
this is so sick.
And
dude.
when asked, they identify more with the aliens who are doing the conquering than the humans that are being conquered.
Yeah, they're just like, oh yeah, look, they're conquering us. Isn't that cool? Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. So I made a new section because the part where Tristan makes you sad was probably not a great place to just like leave folks.
Yes. We still don't have a stinger for this because I keep loading on the soundboard. I keep loading on like bad sounding things. I loaded in a wrong buzzer sound. We don't need
dramatic
that.
farts.
We don't need that. I loaded in the dramatic fart. I loaded in this like this little blorp sound effect from an old cartoon. Oh, we don't need that. That's not good either. I only have like negative
You have
sound
no Wilhelm
effects.
scream?
So I don't have the Wilhelm scream on here. I do have.
I think that comes preloaded.
Oh, I have a drum roll. All
right, let's
drum roll.
All right, we'll give it a shot.
All right, here's what you can do. Kind of goes on for a while, a little bit longer than I would want.
So the first thing is the Gift Gallop is probably one of the favorites of the conspiracy theorist, and you should probably realize that when shows present rapid fire claims and just move from one point to the other without describing things in detail, that is a big red flag, and you should be aware of that. Lots of arguments is not as good as a few strong arguments. Second of all, learn about historical counter narratives. Like, for example, all that stuff I said about the history of Christianity, you wouldn't, unless you like did the research to see like how early Christianity was like very pacifist. Or you might see the counters to this in current Christian theology. The most recent pope, the one who passed away a few months ago, had ties with a very popular move of Catholicism in Latin America called liberation theology, which is a entire sort of kind of school within Catholicism of seeing Christianity as a liberatory force for the oppressed, which to me sounds a shitload like Christianity as it was like,
What it was?
Yeah.
The old school stuff.
Yeah.
That's that first album I really liked before they got into their more experimental stuff.
Yeah. And this is also a really good example of how empires and the powerful will use the cultural signifiers or the things of the day that are popular that people are grabbing onto and twist them in order to use that imagery to justify their desires, like to conquer or to colonize or to enslave. And very often that'll happen. Think about all of the democracies that the United States overthrew because they justified through the need to end communism, or how a lot of authoritarianism's happening in the U.S. government right now under the guise of making things more efficient or to stop whatever the fuck woke means. It's all just trying to use popular ideas to enact what the state actually wants to do anyway, and they'll just make it look like whatever they want. And you might think that this is a new thing, but this is really all, to get really anarchisty for a bit, that's basically all states do. They will do whatever it is to advance their own agenda, which is to make themselves more powerful, and they'll use whatever sort of cultural identifying symbols that they need in order to get people on board, because otherwise people would be like, hey, I don't really want to die or send my kids to die to increase your stock portfolio numbers. I'd rather have healthcare and roads and stuff like that. And to make people not want healthcare and roads and instead want to send their kids to die in the other side of the world, you have to call things crusades.
Yep. You get a fast pass to heaven.
Fast pass to heaven. Give you a little wristband and everything. And also there's a couple other ones that are a little bit more spicy to eat. Like one, we have a society, Western society is very big on technology and technological determinism. And so we have to really think about the kind of assumptions that we have that more technology means advancement, or that it automatically grants authority, which throughout history we can talk about a lot. There's a really great book called The Art of Not Being Governed, which talks about how a lot of our written history of civilization is the history of the settled authoritarian societies, while there were plenty of people who didn't live in the cities and didn't want to. And how very much there are a lot of people in kind of early cities and stuff like that who left the cities to move into the country because they didn't want to live under the rulership of kings and stuff like that. And their story doesn't get written about because they didn't write it down. But it could be that we because we live in a world that is ruled by states, we see the world through state-shaped glasses, state-colored glasses, and see everything through these, essentially what are organizations that tell us what to do and take our stuff and don't really give us a whole lot in return.
Yeah. Hey, on a smaller scale, just to make it maybe easier to think about as an example, and we're going to catch some strays here, Tristan, but think about every white guy who starts a podcast just because they have the technology to start a podcast. Does it make them automatically interesting to listen to? Does it make them their opinions that they have right? No.
Scott, you had to send me the technology to start this podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
But there is something to that where it's just because a show has good production value doesn't mean it has authority or that it's right. Just because Ben Shapiro can wield $10 million a year on his show doesn't mean that his opinions are better because he can make his stuff look or sound better than the average person. And you got to but also anytime people are invoking divine or natural law to justify violence, you should be whatever they're saying, you should fuck right the fuck off from whatever it is that they're proposing, because that is bad. And support peaceful movements that present cooperation as stronger than domination, because violence is bad. I know it's a controversial take in 2025, but
that's why I needed these sound effects, because when you have a controversial take, I gotta go.
Ooh, spicy. And so, the thing is that history is full of stories that have cooperation, equality, and peaceful problem solving. And these if you really know your anthropology and your history outside of what's written by the people who actively break this, the majority of the way human history works, the majority of your everyday life with everybody requires cooperation, equality, and peaceful problem solving to answer, because that is our natural state. And it's
That's
actually
what we want to do.
Yeah, it's actually pretty naive and pretty uninformed to think of the proper way of doing things to be associated with violence being natural, when you look at the vast majority of human history, you look at the vast majority of human experience today is not violent. And
Correct.
people don't, if we didn't have a government, we wouldn't just all be stabbing each other for our money. We would we have a long history of not having government telling us what we can and can't do, and still cooperating, because cooperating is just the better way to do things.
Exactly.
And so, that's all. If you want to talk about how I'm wrong and how violence is good, actually, you can go to NerdSync on Blue Sky.
What? No, that's not you. That's me. I'm actually not NerdSync at Blue Sky, but it's fine.
Scott
I'm sure
Nice
someone
Wonder.
is. Yeah. Look, it's all about community, right? Join our community at Probs Not Aliens on Blue Sky. You can join the lovely space potatoes. That's what we call our audience. We don't call you that enough, but you're our lovely space potatoes. Named after Al, the space potato. Tristan, you and I do different things on YouTube. I think everyone knows what I've been up to. Dunking on Ben Shapiro like it's 2018 again. Oh, good times. But what do you do on the internet?
I have a channel called Step Back, where I try to talk about the world in kind of a way that I do on this show, except with less conspiracies and more just news and history and stuff. My next video is a work in progress. I should be finishing research in the next week or two, but it is going to be on the Hindutva movement, or Hindu nationalism. And it's sort of how it's sort of sinking into way too much of a modern day life. But Scott, if I wanted to figure out whether or not Shazam was a myth, where would I go?
Oh, that's a terrible video. Don't watch that video. But you can watch it at NerdSync. That's my YouTube channel, NERDSYNC. I'm doing this fun thing for this month, as of we're recording, which is the month of August, that I'm calling Dogist, which is where I'm making videos about dogs. Because I normally don't. You wouldn't think about. I never talk about dogs on my channel.
You've got Scooptober. Now you've got Dogist.
Dogist.
You're just give it a few. In 10 years, NerdSync is just going to be all dogs all the time.
All dogs all the time. I used to do a Spider-Man month back in the day called Webruary. I always had a fun
That's a tough one.
theme.
That's a tough one.
That one's a tough one. Webruary. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Crypto the Superdog and Scooby-Doo, because I can't help myself. I always love talking about Scooby-Doo. But that's my YouTube channel, NerdSync. And you can follow this show on Nebula, where you get episodes early. Yes? Are we still doing that?
Yeah, full week early.
Awesome. You can do that. That's nebula.tv/probablynotaliens. You can also support the show directly if you have the means to do so and the desire to do so. That is patreon.com/probsnotaliens. You can get, once again, episodes early, behind the scenes stuff. And we're Tristan and I are reworking, or just we're thinking about the Patreon. We're thinking about how to make it more worthwhile for you all. But right now, the biggest thing it does is it just supports the show, helps us pay editors to edit the show for us.
We were batting around some ideas. Yeah, we're batting around some ideas because I've been following some other podcasts about maybe trying to do some mini series, or
you know how we've teased
something
in the past about doing it's probably not ghosts for supernatural theme.
Yeah, let's throw a few of those.
We might
in
do
there.
an episode or two of those only on the Patreon. That could be fun.
Yeah, but if you don't have money, then the best place to there are tons of ways to support this podcast that don't involve money. So if you don't have money, leaving a review on whatever app you're using to do so really helps, because there's not a whole lot of podcasts are one of the few non-For You page driven type media now. And so reviews, word of mouth by telling your friends and rivals and teachers and whatever, all really help. And the place that you can send them is probsnotaliens.com. I mean, com.
That's That's what did you say?
.com. Don't go there.
Don't go there. We don't own that URL. I'm not responsible for what's on there. I don't even think
Probs.aliens.xxx. We gotta buy that. We should buy that one. We should buy
Probs.aliens.xxx.
Yeah.
Emily forbids me from buying any more URLs, so that one's all on you, Tristan, if you would like to, but I am not allowed.
Okay.
Either way, that's a great place to send people to get links to everything we talked about. And that's really it on this show. Thank you for joining us. I thought this was very fun. I liked learning a lot about the militarization of Christianity. I never thought of it, so that was very fun. I never really give one of these like codas at the end, but I like it. Anyway, until next time, my name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there, but probably not at probs.aliens.xxx because it's on Hover for $119.
We're not spending Patreon money on that.
Yeah, I know. $119 a year.
A year. That's why Emily won't let me buy any more.
That's really only 30 cents a day, if you really think about it.
When you think about it, yeah. I have so many. I don't know about you, Tristan. I have so many domain names for like NerdSync and Scott Nicewander, and I have a lot for Probs Not Aliens. But Emily has been like, stop buying them. No one is going to take them from you. No one's going to get. What if someone gets nerdsync.club? I gotta get .club.